President Trump just signed an executive order pushing Artemis 3 from 2027 to 2028. Most people saw it as a delay, a step backward in the space race. But Elon Musk recognized something different. What if rushing to beat China by 1 year would actually destroy America's entire moon program? SpaceX hasn't even rolled out a full HLS vehicle yet. Starship V3 is untested. Orbital refueling has never been proven. And early test flights typically show 30 to 40% failure rates. So here's the real question. Would a spectacular public failure in 2027 set the program back even further than a strategic delay to 2028? Let's dive right in. The executive order Trump signed on January 20th, 2025, the same day Jared Isaacman took office as NASA administrator, wasn't just a schedule adjustment. It was a calculated risk management decision. The document specifically states, return American astronauts to the lunar surface through the Artemis program in 2028 instead of 2027 to ensure feasibility and safety. Notice the word choice here. Not delay, not postponement, but ensure feasibility and safety. What does NASA know that made this change necessary? The answer lies in what SpaceX hasn't accomplished yet. Right now, at the end of 2024, SpaceX has completed 5 Starship test flights. They've caught the booster with Mechazilla. They've demonstrated controlled reentry. But here's what they haven't done. They haven't rolled out a single complete HLS vehicle. They haven't performed orbital refueling. They haven't kept a Starship in orbit for more than 90 minutes. And they certainly haven't proven they can land anything on the moon. So when people ask if 2026 is achievable, they're really asking, can SpaceX accomplish in 24 months what they haven't done in 4 years of testing? Let's break down what actually needs to happen. First, Starship version 3 has to prove itself reliable. This isn't just another iteration. It's a fundamental redesign. The hot staging ring has been improved. The grid fins are different. Raptor 3 engines deliver more thrust but require new operational parameters. The heat shield uses different materials. The catch hardware has been modified. Every single one of these changes introduces new failure points that won't reveal themselves until Flight 12 launches, probably in late January or early February 2025. Here's what makes Flight 12 so critical. Booster 19 is already stacked. Ship 39 is rolling out for cryo testing. But the first flight of any new rocket variant carries the highest risk profile. Remember Starship V2? The early flights looked rough. Heat shield damage, propellant leaks, engine instability. It took multiple iterations before Flights 6 and 7 delivered what SpaceX called near miraculous results. What happens if Flight 12 encounters a major anomaly? The FAA launches an investigation. Timeline gets compressed. Flight 13 slips from April to June, maybe July. And suddenly, that aggressive 2026 lunar mission window starts closing fast. But let's say Flight 12 succeeds brilliantly. What comes next? Flight 13 aims to place Starship in orbit for the first time. Not just a suborbital trajectory, but actual sustained orbit. That milestone unlocks the next challenge, orbital refueling. And this is where things get genuinely complicated. The current plan calls for 2 Starships to launch about a week apart in mid-2026. One launches from Pad 2 at Starbase, enters low Earth orbit, and holds position for a week while minimizing propellant boil-off. The second Starship, the tanker, launches from LC-39A in Florida, which is still under construction. The 2 vehicles rendezvous autonomously. They dock, then liquid methane and liquid oxygen transfer through an umbilical connection using only pressure differential, no pumps. Sounds straightforward, doesn't it? But consider what could go wrong. Docking misalignment, propellant freezing in the transfer lines, boil-off rates higher than predicted, leaks at the connection points, communication failures during autonomous operations. Elon Musk addressed these concerns on X, saying orbital refueling is much easier than docking with the space station, which SpaceX already does several times a year. That's technically true. Crew Dragon has proven docking reliability. But there's a crucial difference. Crew Dragon docks with a passive target. The ISS doesn't maneuver during approach. But 2 Starships? Both are massive. Both have active propulsion systems. Both are managing cryogenic propellants that shift the center of mass as they transfer. The dynamics are fundamentally different. Does that mean it's impossible? Absolutely not. Does it mean the first attempt has a guaranteed success rate? History suggests otherwise. If we take Musk seriously about running several refueling tests in 2025, let's do the math. Each mission requires two vehicles. Each mission lasts just over a week in orbit, but realistically, you need about a month between attempts to build, prep, and process the next pair of Starships. So 5 refueling tests would consume roughly 5 months. Start in June 2025, you're looking at completion in November. That theoretically leaves December 2026 open for an uncrewed HLS lunar mission. Tight, but mathematically possible. But what if the second refueling test fails? What if they need 7 attempts instead of 5? What if Flight 12 slips to March and pushes everything back 2 months? This is where the strategic genius of the 2028 timeline becomes obvious. NASA didn't push Artemis 3 back just for SpaceX. The SLS and Orion for Artemis 2 are ready. They're already stacked and set to launch in 2026. But the SLS and Orion for Artemis 3, still in production, still undergoing assembly. The NASA Inspector General warned explicitly, without extending the schedule, the program faces a shortage of ready spacecraft, potentially causing delays stretching to 2029. So even if SpaceX delivered HLS perfectly on time, the other vehicles weren't going to be ready anyway. Here's the part most people miss. Artemis isn't a single mission, it's a synchronized chain. Orion has to deliver astronauts into lunar orbit before they can transfer to HLS. Forcing an uncrewed HLS test in 2026 without coordinated Orion data would be operationally pointless. You'd spend billions proving HLS can land on the moon, but you wouldn't have the flight data from Artemis 2 to validate how Orion actually performs in lunar orbit. No docking data, no real-world communications lag data, no crew transfer procedure validation. The uncrewed test becomes a publicity stunt instead of a meaningful certification milestone. Now consider the alternative timeline. Artemis 2 launches in 2026, returns real flight data on Orion's performance around the moon. SpaceX analyzes that data throughout 2026 and early 2027. They refine HLS docking mechanisms based on what Orion actually experiences. They adjust communications protocols. They validate crew transfer procedures in simulation using real Artemis 2 telemetry. Then in late 2027, they launch the uncrewed HLS mission with all that knowledge already integrated. The risk of docking failures drops dramatically. The probability of mission success increases substantially. And Artemis 3 proceeds in 2028 with genuine confidence, not forced optimism. But there's a darker scenario we need to address. What if SpaceX rushes an uncrewed HLS mission into 2026 and it fails spectacularly? We're not talking about a booster explosion during testing. Those are expected. We're talking about a highly publicized lunar mission that ends in failure after billions in investment. What happens then? The political consequences would be severe. Congress, already skeptical of commercial space partnerships, would demand answers. Funding for Artemis could face serious cuts. And Blue Origin, who already challenged NASA's HLS award once, would immediately position themselves as the safer alternative. Jeff Bezos would argue that Blue Moon could deliver more reliability. The delays caused by political chaos and contract litigation could push crewed landings past 2030. Instead of accelerating the timeline, a 2026 failure could destroy it completely. This is why the one-year delay isn't a retreat, it's strategic positioning. The United States would still land astronauts on the moon in 2028, 2 full years ahead of China's 2030 target. That's not losing the space race. That's winning it sustainably. And it preserves something critically important: public trust. If America returns to the moon successfully in 2028, the world sees competence and reliability. If America fails publicly in 2027, the world sees decline and desperation. So what's Elon Musk's brilliant move here? He understood something fundamental. In space exploration, second place with success beats first place with failure. Every single time. The 2028 timeline gives SpaceX the breathing room to perfect orbital refueling through multiple test flights. It allows Artemis 2 to return real-world data that makes Artemis 3 safer. It keeps the United States 2 full years ahead of China while building a foundation that can actually last. And most importantly, it protects the program from the one thing that could kill it permanently: a spectacular, globally televised failure that destroys public confidence and congressional support. This isn't about playing it safe. This is about playing it smart. The Apollo program succeeded because NASA took calculated risks, not reckless ones. The difference between 2027 and 2028 might seem trivial on paper, but in reality, it's the difference between a sustainable lunar presence and a propaganda disaster that sets American space exploration back a decade. President Trump's executive order didn't delay the moon landing, it saved it. And when American astronauts plant their boots in lunar regolith in 2028, the world won't remember whether it happened in 2027 or 2028. They'll remember that America came back to stay. What do you think? Is the one-year delay actually a strategic win? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this analysis changed how you see the Artemis timeline, hit that like button and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to Space Update 24 Hours. We're pushing toward 150,000 subscribers, and your support makes these deep dives possible. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. NASA's new administrator just changed everything. On day one, Jared Isaacman said whoever finishes their lunar lander first gets the contract: SpaceX or Blue Origin. When SpaceX fell behind, they pitched a simplified mission. Everyone's first thought? Crew Dragon. It's proven, reliable, already flying. Why not just go a bit further? But here's the problem. That bit further isn't what it seems. What if every solution just moves the hardest part to somewhere else? Let's dive right in. The moment engineers started running the numbers on Dragon for lunar missions, they hit a wall that most people don't see coming. Dragon was designed as a low Earth orbit taxi. That's it. And there's a massive difference between bringing astronauts home from the International Space Station and bringing them back from the moon. When Dragon returns from the ISS, it's moving at about 7.8 kilometers per second when it hits the atmosphere. Fast, but manageable. The heat shield was built for exactly that speed. But coming back from the moon, you're hitting Earth's atmosphere at nearly 11 kilometers per second. That's not just a little bit faster, it's an entirely different thermal regime. The heat shield would need to be completely redesigned, the structure reinforced, the avionics upgraded to handle deep space radiation. You're essentially building a new spacecraft. And here's where it gets worse. Even if you somehow upgraded Dragon to survive lunar return speeds, you haven't solved the real problem. Because the issue